Joining me now is former CIA operations officer, Clare Lopez. Clare, welcome back. She's also a former Marine, by the way. Clare, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Brandon, it's so good to be with you again. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. This is right up your alley. This is what you were talking about. I mean, we've got videos of you going back several years talking about this group. And here's this headline. And we got phone calls today from people in Texas. We got a text today from the mayor of Richardson, Texas. The governor of Texas is talking about it. The attorney general of Texas is talking about it. This group here known as Al-Qaeda's recruitment network. I don't know if you had the chance to watch the video we played on the air, but you're also in this video. You're in this, embedded in this, because you've been talking about this for years. But the video that we played up here, they're actually bragging. This is now the center of this Tablighi Jamaat network in Texas. And I'm sure you had the chance to watch their promotional documentary and read this article, right?
You know, thank you for the article. That really helped bring me up to date on this group, Tablighi Jamaat. You know, way back when we worked with people like Phil Haney. Actually, when I was still at the Center for Security Policy, published a small, paperback monograph about this group. Exactly.
Yeah. So tell our audience who don't know, who is this group? What is their ideology, and why have they chosen Texas as that building in there to supposedly be the capital of their network here in America? Who are they?
Right. So what's brought this to our attention is the headquarters of this group, Tablighi Jamaat, now moved to Garland, Texas. I guess formerly they had been in Louisiana. Now in Garland, Texas. We might recall, by the way, I'm sure you do, Brandon, that Garland, Texas was the site in 2015 of the Draw a Cartoon of Muhammad contest held in Garland, Texas, where it was almost violently attacked. Pam Geller was there, Robert Spencer was there, Tom Trento and some of his guys were there. The winner, I guess, of the contest, if I remember right, Bosch Faustine, was there. He's the one you might remember drew the cartoon of Muhammad, you know, with his great big turban on his head, drawn as a bomb. In any case, that was 2015, and only through the brave, courageous, actions of the private security outside the building that had been hired by Pam Geller, Robert Spencer, was the attack stopped before anybody else besides the attackers got hurt.
Yeah.
So this is now Garland, Texas, right? Tablighi Jamaat is about 100 years old, just about 100-year-old group. It is a Deobandi group founded in India. Maulana Maududi, the founder, back in, I think it's 1926, if I remember right. It is a jihadist group. It is dedicated to not violent attacks. We're not talking about terrorism here. We're talking about jihad in the dawah aspect of that. And that's what they do. They try to increase the devotion, the faithfulness of Muslims themselves in their own communities, mosques, Islamic centers, and as well then to spread the message of Islam, Islamic law, that is Sharia, far and wide, and already pretty far and wide, right? They were formed in India. They're all over the world now, and they are here in the United States. And as we're saying, Garland, Texas, new headquarters.
Yeah. And we of course covered that in our documentary that you're also in, Sabotage, which came out in 2018.
Oh, yeah.
And you remember we had that the FBI embedded saying tear up Texas, texting back, and I think that's still that lawsuit is still going on, as was referenced tonight. It's disturbing at many levels, but I guess down to the brass tacks. Is this group, because the headline over at Rare Foundation says that this group is tied back to Al-Qaeda. Their headline states, known as Al-Qaeda's recruitment network. Would you agree with that statement?
Well, you might think about Tablighi Jamaat as a conveyor belt. It is missionary, it's dawah, it's preaching, it's teaching, it's spreading the message of Islam and Sharia. But because then of the increased, if you might say, devotion, dedication, faithfulness of Muslims to Islam and to its jihadist aspects, the group is fertile recruitment ground, yes, for groups that actually are terrorist, meaning violence, and that includes Al-Qaeda, but others too. That's why I would call it a conveyor belt to the violent jihad.
I want to let's go real quick to an old news report, just for those who maybe are catching up on what we have known for years related to Garland, Texas. Listen to this.
Got a bold new claim concerning the terror attack in Garland last year that ended with 2 terror suspects dead.
The security guard who was wounded is now saying the FBI not only knew about the plot, but let it play out, risking hundreds of lives.
J.D. Miles live tonight in Garland with the CBS 11 exclusive. J.D.?
Doug, there's still some bullet holes in the trees here around the Caldwell Center where 2 ISIS-affiliated terrorists opened fire on Garland police and a security guard. A year and a half later, that security guard is considering a lawsuit against the FBI, which he believes allowed the attack to happen.
Well, I feel like they're not coming clean.
Bruce Joyner is talking about the FBI. The security guard was shot in the leg by Elton Simpson and Nadir Sufi. The 2 ISIS recruits drove to the Caldwell Center in May 2015 and started firing before they were killed by Garland police. Joyner claims that 3 officers told him an undercover FBI agent was following the terrorists in another vehicle.
I know that there was a third person. I know that he had his life saved by claiming he was an FBI agent.
Joyner says Garland officers had their guns pointed at the man who was wearing Middle Eastern attire and quickly taken away by federal agents.
He was detained, put in the back of a squad car, put a bag over his head, and took him away to another location.
The FBI and Garland police have refused to confirm or deny that account. But Joyner is using that info as the basis for a possible lawsuit, accusing the FBI of allowing the violent plot to go forward. You believe the FBI allowed a terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think that they allowed it to go too far.
That they are responsible. They do have an intentional tort on their hands.
Trent Roberts is Joyner's attorney. He says he's being stonewalled by the government about its undercover activities before the attack. We know from this FBI arrest affidavit that an undercover agent was tracking the terrorists for weeks, even sending a text urging them to, quote, tear up Texas. FBI Director James Comey has said Garland was sent a bulletin 3 hours before the attack, warning that someone could be on their way.
This thing could have been a disaster.
Joyner believes and may soon try to prove in court that the FBI could have stopped it, but chose not to.
I don't know of any undercover agent that can allow their fellow officers and citizens to be fired upon in the course of an investigation. You have to stop that before that happens.
Joyner says if it had not been for the quick thinking of Garland SWAT officers, he believes the FBI would have blood on its hands. The FBI would not respond to our questions. Joyner's attorney is asking for any potential witnesses to come forward to help support a pending lawsuit.
All right. Now, I don't know about the accuracies on that last part, because I know that Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer have told me that they hired off-duty police. Mm-hmm. So that report made it sound like the local police and everybody was so vigilant in there. Everything I was told on video, in my documentary, and on shows with Pamela and Robert is they just happened to hire people who were off-duty cops. That's who took care of it. If they hadn't hired their own security, I think that would have turned out differently that day. Like we did in Sioux Falls, remember? We hired our own security when that gunman came in from Saudi Arabia, filmed his Quran, panned the crowd. My security guys removed him, and he sat out there and made videos brandishing 5 weapons, 2 semi-automatics, and threatening us, and did 7 months in federal prison. So that video, I don't think is quite accurate, but at least it shows people that we're not making this up, are we, Claire?
No, not at all. And I would add, to provide a little more context to this, these 2 would-be assailants had driven all the way to Garland, Texas from Arizona. Okay? They were members of a Muslim Brotherhood affiliated mosque in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And they had been under surveillance. They had been under watch by the FBI all the way from there. And they drove across country, all the way across Arizona, New Mexico, into Texas, to Garland, to this draw a cartoon of Muhammad contest event. And it was during all that time, prior to departure from Arizona, on the drive all the way across country to Texas, that the FBI apparently was following, observing these 2, but not doing much else. Maybe goading them on even, as we heard, that quote, tear up Texas. So they were in direct contact with them, but not stopping them. If anything, goading them on.
Any idea, Claire, the number of terror cells in the U.S.? I mean, I know you followed federal trials where we know they're here, right?
Yeah, sure, they're here. No, I do not know any kind of a number. With the wide open border, certainly the southern border, also the northern border with Canada, over the last 4 years before President Trump took office once again, a couple months ago in January, during that time, millions, untold millions came across certainly the southern border. I'm going to say, yes, the northern border too, but we'll focus on the southern border. And we don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We don't know what they're doing. Now, Tom Homan, our new border czar, and of course our new DHS, Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, formerly the governor of South Dakota, they're doing a terrific job as fast as they can, working with the awesome, people of both ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, and also CBP, the Customs and Border Protection units, working as fast as they can to identify and round up these people with a focus first on those deemed most threatening, most dangerous, who already are convicted criminals or have already, deportation orders from a court, from a judge, focusing on them first. But there were millions. There were millions who came across, and among them, obviously traffickers, human traffickers, drug traffickers, traffickers in women, and yes, children, of whom children they have lost track of over 300,000, who are certainly, at least some of them among them, in indentured servitude, forced labor, and of course, pornography, sex trafficking. There are also, of course, other kinds of criminals, gangs like MS-13. Just today, early this morning, in my own community where I live in Northern Virginia, the Tom Homan team with the cooperation of the governor of Glenn Youngkin of Virginia and local authorities here, took down, arrested one of the top gang leaders of MS-13, Mara Salvatrucha Trece, in the country. Identified him, arrested him early this morning in the community where I live. So they're doing the best they can, but among others, gang members, cartel members. Tren de Aragua has come to our attention kind of recently, within the last year, let's say. Violent prison gang out of Venezuela that members of that gang, encouraged by the regime down there of Nicolas Maduro, released even from prison, encouraged to come on up here, get out of Venezuela. Their crime rate is way down. To come up here across our borders and come to the United States, where that gang, Tren de Aragua, has a presence just about every state in the Union, almost. Many major cities, towns, even smaller. So again, we're saying gangs, we're saying human traffickers overall, narco traffickers, human traffickers. We're talking cartel people. We're talking jihadis.
Yes.
Yes, jihadis as well, because that border was wide open. And yeah, they're here. Never mind how many 10, 15,000 Chinese People's Liberation Army jungle tigers. We don't know what they're doing here either. So yeah, we're pretty well flooded right now. And Tom Homan is doing as quick and as professional a job with again, the people of ICE and CBP and so forth, as anyone has ever done. But it's a big job ahead of them.
Indeed it is. Let me ask you about two other issues, Claire. Iran and then Turkey. I know you have followed both these. Iran first. Where do you think we're going with Iran? And again, how concerned are you with Hezbollah fighters, Iranian Hezbollah fighters here in the U.S.?
Well, I'll take the last one first. Hezbollah has been here in the United States, in communities all over the country for years. And of course, with you, Brandon, some years ago, we recorded that, what was it, 10, 11 part series about Hezbollah in America. So yeah, they're here. But Iran more broadly, this is even more urgent because this is happening right now. The Iranian regime is on the verge, I mean, literally, really on the verge of deploying deliverable nuclear weapons. It's my own conclusion, my own assessment, but it's based on following the reporting out of the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, and what we call the good ISIS, that is David Albright's group called the Institute for Science and International Security. Following those reports over the years, also the reporting from the Iranian major opposition group, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, and its member organization, the Mujahideen-e-Khalq, inside of Iran, penetrated into its nuclear weapons program. Following all of that, it is my belief that Iran has nuclear warheads, at least a small handful. And from most recent press conferences that I've attended, either by Zoom or in person, press conferences from the NCRI, whose headquarters in the United States is downtown Washington, D.C., on Pennsylvania Avenue, 2 blocks down from the White House. Their reporting indicates I attended one in December of 24, the other one in January this year, 2025. Their reporting indicates that what the Iranians are doing now is fitting those warheads to the nose cones of their ballistic missiles. We know absolutely they have ballistic missiles because they've already fired them at Israel unsuccessfully, thankfully, last year in April and in October. But those were nuclear capable. They were not nuclear tipped, but they were nuclear capable. But now, at 2 ballistic missile development sites just outside of Tehran, the capital of Iran, the Iranian regime reportedly is working on the warheads. It's not an easy technological thing. You don't just screw them on like a lid on a jar. It's a difficult technological challenge. But the fact that they are working on the warheads at the ballistic missile development sites means to me it means they're in the last stage of attaching them.
So are you thinking then that obviously the satellites are picking this stuff up and intel on the ground?
Well, the internal reporting from the Mujahideen-e-Khalq are picking this up, and as well as other intelligence means, I'm certain too. But what I was going to lead to here is that in very recent, within the last few weeks, let's say, interviews by President Trump with media, in particular Fox Business News, I have heard him express more urgency than I've ever heard, more explicit urgency about Iran's progress with its nuclear weapons. Let me see if I can find it real fast. Here we go. It was in early March this year, 2025, that President Trump was speaking on Fox Business News, and he said at that time he had written a letter to the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran. I've written them a letter, he said. I hope you're going to negotiate, because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing. But you can't let them have a nuclear weapon. He goes on, quote, President Trump, we're down to final strokes with Iran. We're down to the final moments. Final moments. Can't let them have a nuclear weapon. We have a situation with Iran that something's going to happen very soon. Now, what we've seen, and the news has reported, it's all over the media, is that U.S. Air assets, air forces, are converging on Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. That is certainly flying distance to Iran. We know that there are aerial refueling super tankers there. We know that there are cargo ships there. We know that there are fighter jets moving towards bases there and elsewhere in the Middle East. We know that the aircraft carrier group of the Carl Vinson is moving right now from where it had been in the Western Pacific to somewhere headed towards the Middle East. And we also know that recently U.S. Air Force fighter jets, or I should say Israeli Air Force fighter jets, have engaged in exercises with U.S. Air Force aerial refueling tankers, because that's what it's going to take. What it sounds like to me is that Israel, which of course is in the bullseye for Iran, they're the first target. They're one nuclear bomb country so small. It's existential for them. But Israel and the United States, it looks to me like they are joining forces in final preparations, and it's not against the Houthis. The Houthis are getting clobbered in Yemen as we speak, yes, but I don't think all of this is about the Houthis. So I think what President Trump said in that Fox Business interview, we're down to final moments, is what he said.
So
I think that's what we're looking at.
What does that mean, Claire, for us in America? Because I know most Americans watch that. They go, oh, well, that's over there. But we've already mentioned terrorist cells here in the U.S.
Yeah.
But you did an amazing piece years ago, that's in my documentary from 2018, on the Club K cargo missile launching system. $10 million,
Yeah.
$10 million bucks, and you can buy a cargo container that pops up with the lid and 2 silos with a nuclear tipped missile, and boom, they can be off our coast. They can be on cargo containers. Are we to believe that Israel and America can go after Iran, and we shouldn't worry that they might do anything here, or will they?
Well, I think we, the media certainly, have lost track of that reporting about the Gulf Tainer, the cargo container report that you're talking about there, Brandon. But even aside from that, there are certainly Hezbollah cells all across the United States, as well as others that may be affiliated with or reporting to Iranian officials, the Iranian regime. We've already seen, what Muslim Brotherhood, certainly, which is a close affiliate associate of the Iranian regime now for many, many years, what the Muslim Brotherhood and its front groups, like the Muslim Student Association, like the Students for Justice in Palestine, can and have been doing on our campuses, our university campuses, and in the streets too. I think we can expect more of that if when strikes against the Iranian nuclear weapons program. We're talking about not cities per se in Iran. We're talking about nuclear weapons sites like Natanz the enrichment site, like Isfahan, the conversion site, like Fardo, a nuclear facility deeply buried underground with many thousands of centrifuges spinning away to produce more. I think they're at weapons grade uranium. That's above 90% enriched. And the warnings have been coming, again, out of the IAEA, as we said, the good ISIS, and out of United States, senior intelligence as well, that Iran, they still won't admit, that Iran has warheads. Now, for some crazy convention, vocabulary convention, I mean, it's not called a weapon until the warhead is actually attached to the delivery system. And so Iran having nuclear warheads, they're not going to call that a weapon. For whatever crazy reason, this is how it is. But in any case, if and when those strikes occur against those places and maybe others that we've mentioned, there are plenty of, Iranian and or Muslim Brotherhood assets here in the United States, that will, go on the streets again, hit the streets, hit the campuses. I mean, we're already seeing what's going on the campuses even now, spring semester, which, doesn't finish until probably May or so. But I think we're ratcheting up to a point of quite possibly that those strikes could occur well before May.
And then let me ask you finally, just a wealth of information. We got to get you back on more regularly here. Another topic you've covered for so long and warned about, Turkey. And now we see the president of Turkey, I don't know how is he still a member of NATO, but we see him having more influence in Syria. We see the protests against him, people spilling in the streets. The poor people, so many of the poor people in Iran that want freedom and liberty. Many of the poor people in Turkey who want liberty and freedom. But talk to me about Turkey, because you also warned about one of Erdogan's, I guess, opposition guys that was living in Pennsylvania. I think he's now since passed away, but he was planting these schools all over the U.S. Right. So I'll go back to 2018, which is the year that, when again I was still at the Center for Security Policy, we published another monograph, a paperback. It's a good sized monograph. This one called "Ally No More." Ally No More. It's still on Amazon. You can find it there. It's about Turkey. And in that book, we had a number, I think it might have been as many as 10 different authors. I was one of the authors, but also the editor, who contributed chapters to this book, talking about Recep Tayyip Erdogan's ambitions to revive the Ottoman Empire. As we'll recall, after World War I, it is when Turkey lost, it was on the wrong side, the losing side of World War I, that the Ottoman Empire was lost. But more to the point, the last Islamic Caliphate was abolished by the military officer named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who took over, maybe call it the rump state, or what was left of Turkey, the Turkey whose boundaries we know today, after World War I. Well, it was the 1924 abolition of the last Islamic Caliphate. There'd always been a caliphate after Muhammad. Well, if he ever lived, we'll just say that he did. But always had been a caliphate, sometimes even 2 or 3, and they were at odds with each other, fighting. This was the first time there was no caliphate, and it was the Turks that lost it. 4 years later, in Cairo, Egypt, is when Hassan al-Banna, student there at the time with other students, founded the Muslim Brotherhood, the Ikhwan, precisely with a mission to reestablish the caliphate. And so that is motivation that drives Turkey, drives Erdogan to this day. Yes, as you mentioned, people are in the streets in Turkey because Erdogan very recently arrested his most popular opposition political candidate, who was the mayor of Istanbul, brought thousands and thousands of Turks out into the street to protest that.
But quickly linking over to what's going on in Syria, the group that has taken over Damascus now, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, it's called, is a protege. It is a jihadi group that was armed, funded, trained, backed, supported by Erdogan, by Turkey, and in lightning fast fashion, this past December 2024, swept down from its more northern bases in what used to be called Turkey, what used to be called Syria, swept down and conquered Homs, Hama, and eventually Damascus. The leader of HTS for short, as it's called, birth name is Ahmed al-Shara. Sometimes you'll hear him go by his nom de guerre, al-Golani, that nom de guerre because his grandparents came from the Golan Heights. You see names in the Middle East with an I on the end, like al-Golani. That means somebody in the family, them or their parents, grandparents, came from that place, al-Golani. But he goes more now by his birth name, Ahmed al-Shara, and he is the head of this HTS jihadi group. You'll see him running around in a nice shirt and suit and tie, and he's, trimmed his beard quite nicely, trying to, give the impression that he's really a moderate. And except for the fact that he just issued orders that there he is in khaki green there, but we'll see him in a suit and tie even upon occasion. But he just recently issued an edict placing his rule in Damascus under Islamic law, under Sharia. So also prior, a few weeks back, his forces, which were the ones that ousted the former longtime regime of Bashar al-Assad, formerly his father Hafez al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad and family now in safe haven in Moscow in Russia, but he al-Shara ousted the Bashar al-Assad regime, which was an ethnically based group, based Alawites. They're called. Alawites are kind of they're not really Islamic. They're an offshoot, but not considered truly faithfully Islamic, but some sort of offshoot of Islam some long time past. In any case, because that was the ethnic group of Bashar al-Assad and the al-Assad family, the HTS and Ahmed al-Shara's group have slaughtered, just murdered tens of thousands of Alawites, but also Christians and Druze, which also are minority ethnic and religious groups in what used to be called Syria. Just real quick before we finish here, Syria is not really a country. We mentioned the breakup of the Ottoman Empire back after World War I in the last century. Syria was cobbled together. It was never a country before then. It was a satrap of the Ottoman Empire until it collapsed. But then the Allied victors of World War I, primarily the British and the French, were assigned mandates across the former Ottoman Empire territories of the Middle East. And they just sort of sat down and drew lines on a map, creating out of thin air new countries that never existed before. And Syria is one of those. Jordan's another. We can talk about another time. But Syria in particular, because it's made up of so many ethnic minorities, religious minorities. There are Shiites, there are Sunnis, which are the most numerous, Alawites, as we've said, Druze, Christians. And guess what? They hate each other. They were not like our founding fathers of the 13 colonies, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, etc. No, they were forced together unwillingly into a brand new country they called Syria, and they don't want to be part of it. None of them want to be part of it. And any number of Druze villages, as we've heard, have even asked the Israelis,
yes,
the Israeli government, there on the Golan Heights, the southern part of the Golan Heights, where it borders on Israel, where we've been how many times, petition to join Israel, to be under Israeli sovereignty, because they'd rather have the protection of the Israeli government than take their chances under HTS. So kind of long way of explaining what's going on there.
So quick answer on this one then. Should we worry about any of Erdogan's followers or people that have been trained here among the other ones we've been talking about tonight?
Well, here's the thing. Both Turkey and Qatar, they're allied, are the backers. Again, the backers and the supporters and the funders of Muslim Brotherhood front groups in America. So what we're seeing, again, on these college campuses, on the streets too, they are groups like the AMP, American Muslims for Palestine, founding member of the USCMO, United States Council of Muslim Organizations, Muslim Brotherhood umbrella group in America. Its campus branch is SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine. How many now? 2 or 3 lawsuits against them, the SJP, that is, or national SJP. So that those groups and others besides, are proteges of Turkey and of Qatar, both. And yes, they continue to be affiliated. Certainly on our college campuses, also on our streets, and we're going to see more of that. Yes.
And I think it is Robert Spencer and several others that we've interviewed, Alan Dershowitz, who I've interviewed numerous times. Alan has said some of these college kids that are being indoctrinated will become terrorists, and that's a great
absolutely
concern.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Here it is, folks. Follow her on X at Clare M. Lopez, at Clare M. Lopez, to follow more about what she's up to and doing. As you guys can tell, extremely knowledgeable, former CIA operations officer, former Marine as well, and sat at this desk and did about 10 or 11 one-hour series or 30-minute series on Hezbollah. It's in our vault. There you'll find it, worldviewtube.com/vault. We need to get her back on a more regular basis. I'm glad we had you on tonight. Thank you, Claire.
Thanks, Brennan. Thanks very much for having me.
Glad to have you on. It's an honor. Folks, follow her on her X account. There it is, at Clare M, as in, I don't know, Mary, but just
Marie.
There you go. All right. Marie. Clare Marie Lopez. Get that M in there so you follow the right one. There it is. Clare Lopez. Follow her, won't you? All right, guys, before we continue, our next guest, Dr. Peter Breggin. Why are people ripping their clothes off and running through the airports and airplanes? Why is there apparently an increase in people having manic meltdowns? Why? And what do you do about it? I mean, what if you have a family member or a friend? I'm not making light of it. It would be very horrific to see that happen to somebody, particularly one of your loved ones or friends or family members. What can you do if you know someone that struggles with this? Psychiatrist and best-selling New York Times author Dr. Peter Breggin is going to join us in just 1 minute. I want to take you back real quick, though. worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. We have the big Worldview Radio Understanding the Times rally coming up in Milwaukee as the page loads. There it is. On Tuesday evening, April 15th. Tuesday evening, April 15th. We now have, between phone registration and online, 1,000 people registered. We want you there. And if you can't be there, if you're a Vault member, you're going to be a live stream it, but you're going to have to be a Vault member to live stream it. worldviewtube.com/vault. What I'd love for you to do is tell your family and friends about this that are in Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Iowa, Michigan. I mean, yeah, they can drive from Iowa. It's not that bad of a drive at all. Michigan. This will be our first Worldview rally we've done in 7 years. It's called our Worldview Radio Understand the Times rally. It's free, but you must register. You must register so we can have enough seats for everybody, okay? They're charging us $2 a chair. So you're going to have to register so we have enough chairs out, but not too many, okay? worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. Let's go back over there to that sponsors page. Go ahead and join the vault, folks. 35 years. 35 years of my books, ebooks, documentaries, radio shows, TV shows, as little as $7.99 a month. Are we not? providing you with enough resources here to ask for $7.99 a month, and you get the access of 35 years of $9.99 or $7.99 if they do for a year, Logan. Yeah. And you get the access of 35 years of my books, radio shows, TV shows, all of our products there. Okay? So check it out. A lot of the series there, folks, just as relevant as the day we recorded them. Here's a great one right there. National security threat, interfaith dialogue. There's Yasser Qadi, who's building that big center down there in Texas we've been telling you about with good old useful idiot James White, hyper-Calvinist James White. Let's see now, what would these two guys have in common? One's an Islamist and one is a hyper-Calvinist. Oh, I think they have the same God, to be honest with you. That's my opinion, theologically. If James doesn't like it, he can come on here and debate me. But I think James is too much of a coward, to be honest with you. But anyway, there you go. There's a lot of stuff there that is highly, highly relevant for what's happening in our country today. I mean, just like that. This series was 2017. And it's about a character that's now making a lot of people in Texas very concerned about his epic center that he's building. Oh, yeah. And who can you blame for the fact that you have the churches of America neutered? I think you can blame James White and John MacArthur and Justin Peters and Phil Johnson of Grace to You. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. How'd we go there? Some of you know those names. Well, you might want to watch the 5 hours and find out how they gave cover to all this back in 2017. Oh, yeah. Even sent us a letter saying, don't contact our church anymore. When we tried to say, hey, some of your guys in your ministry and church are giving cover to a guy, James White, who's having an interfaith dialogue with a Jew-hating, Holocaust-denying, Hitler-defending, jihadi-preaching imam. Oh, don't contact us anymore. Yeah. Well, they can pound that pulpit and act so courageous till it comes to reality. Yeah. Oh, well. Steve Lawson. Where was Steve? What's happened to Steve Lawson lately, huh? Anybody know? That guy haven't heard about him lately, have we now? Seems to be a theme with a lot of these guys, doesn't there? So again, I'm telling you, a lot of our stuff is more relevant than ever before. So join the vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. And then don't forget our national conference is coming up in October. We only got 350 seats, and it's 100 of them are already gone. That's at that's at worldviewstore.com. Worldviewstore.com. We only have 350 seats for our national conference, and 100 of them are already gone. So go there, if you would, to worldviewstore.com. Check out who's going to be our speakers. Gordon Cheng, Sidney Powell, Dr. Lana, Chris Martinson, Mark Mitchell Rasmussen, Alex Newman, and all the hotels and all the information are there. I'd go ahead and book your hotels now, folks, because they have soccer tournaments and all kinds of stuff that come into town and fill things up. But 100 of the 350 seats are already gone. So get on board. Only $99. We lowered the price this year because we're saving money by moving it from that beautiful resort, which was beautiful but costly, and we're saving money by moving it here. So we're passing the savings on to you. Worldviewstore.com.